Have you ever felt that heavy silence in your chest? The kind that arrives uninvited after a loss, a failure, or when loneliness seems to echo louder than anything else? We all know that weight. It creeps in during the quiet moments, when the world feels too heavy to carry, and even the smallest tasks seem impossible. Most of us try to escape it. We drown it in distractions, cover it with forced smiles, or pretend it doesn't exist. But the truth is, sadness is not a stranger. It visits every human heart. And while we often see it as our enemy, Buddhism teaches us something radically different. Sadness is not here to destroy us. It is here to teach us. Imagine for a moment if sadness wasn't a punishment, but a messenger. What if every time it arrived, it carried a lesson we needed to learn? By the end of this video, you may never look at sadness the same way again. In fact, you might discover a freedom so profound that sadness itself loses its grip on you. So, stay with me, because the weight you feel today may be the very thing that sets you free tomorrow. Lesson 1. Understanding the nature of sadness. When sadness comes into our lives, it often feels like it has taken permanent residence in our hearts. We wake up with it, we go through our day carrying it, and at night it sits beside us in silence. In those moments, it's easy to believe that sadness will never leave, that it has become part of who we are. But here is where Buddhism offers a gentle reminder. Everything in life is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. Not our happiness, not our success, not even our pain. Life is in constant motion, always changing, always shifting. And sadness, too, is a part of this endless flow. It may feel overwhelming today, but tomorrow it will change shape. It may visit again, but it will never stay forever. Think of the sky. The sky is always there, vast, open, unchanging. But some days, dark clouds gather. They thunder, they pour, they cover everything in gloom. Yet no matter how heavy the storm feels, the sky itself is never damaged. Behind the clouds, the sun still shines, waiting for the storm to pass. In the same way, our sadness may feel like a heavy storm in our hearts, but it is never the whole story. Beneath it, our true nature, calm, clear, and steady, remains untouched. This perspective is powerful because in the middle of sadness, we often mistake it for who we are. We say, I am sad, I am broken, I am hopeless. But Buddhism reminds us that emotions do not define us. Sadness is not your identity. It is an experience that arises and fades, just like a wave in the ocean. A wave may crash hard, but the ocean itself remains vast and unshaken. You are that ocean, deep, infinite, and unbreakable. Now think about the times in your life when sadness felt unbearable. Maybe you lost someone you loved. Maybe you failed at something you worked so hard for. Maybe loneliness wrapped itself around you in silence. In those moments, you probably thought the sadness would last forever, but it didn't, did it? You are here, listening now, which means sadness came. And sadness went. It always does. This truth is easy to forget, but it's one of the most liberating teachings of Buddhism. Whatever you are feeling right now, it will change. Here's something to reflect on. If sadness is only temporary, why do we let it control us as if it's permanent? Why do we wear it as a label when in reality, it's just a passing visitor? The Buddha encouraged us to see emotions like guests in our home. Some guests bring joy, others bring sorrow, but none of them live with us forever. If you can learn to greet sadness as a visitor, acknowledge it, sit with it, and then let it leave, you free yourself from its grip. This doesn't mean you won't ever feel sad again. Life will always bring moments of pain, but it does mean you will no longer be trapped by sadness. You will see it for what it truly is, a cloud drifting across your sky, a wave moving across your ocean, a moment passing through your life. So the next time sadness arrives, pause and remind yourself, this is not who I am. This is not forever. This is simply passing through. And when you can see sadness in this way, you will no longer be crushed by its weight. Instead, you will stand in the quiet strength of knowing that beyond every storm, the sky is always clear. Lesson 2. Attachment creates sorrow. If we look closely at the roots of sadness, we often find one common cause: attachment. The Buddha taught that our suffering doesn't come from life itself, but from the way we cling to it, the way we hold on tightly to people, possessions, and expectations, as if they will never change. Think about it. Why do we feel devastated when someone leaves us, or when something doesn't go the way we wanted? It's because we were attached to a particular outcome. We expected the relationship to last forever. We wanted our career to unfold in a certain way. We hoped life would follow the script we had written in our minds. And when reality didn't match that script, sadness appeared. Attachment is like holding sand in the palm of your hand. If you keep your hand open, the sand rests there peacefully. But if you try to grip it tightly, it slips through your fingers, leaving you frustrated and empty. Life is the same. The more we cling, the more we suffer. Buddhism doesn't say we shouldn't love, or that we shouldn't care. Instead, it invites us to love without clinging, to care without trying to control. Because the truth is, everything we hold on to, whether it's a relationship, a job, or even our own body, will eventually change. And the tighter we hold, the more it hurts when life reminds us of this reality. Let's take a real-life example. Imagine you've worked tirelessly for a promotion at your job. You've given your best, you've sacrificed time and energy, and you've built up an expectation in your mind. I deserve this. But then, the promotion goes to someone else. Immediately, sadness takes over. You feel rejected, overlooked, and defeated. Why? Because you were attached to an outcome. It wasn't the situation itself that broke you. It was the clinging to how you thought things should be. Or think of a relationship. We love someone deeply, but over time, people change, circumstances shift, and sometimes they leave. Our sadness in those moments often comes from the story we've built in our heads. That they would stay forever. That our life together would always look the same. The love was real, but so was the attachment. And it is that attachment that sharpens the blade of sadness. The Buddha compared attachment to a rope that ties us down. The more we cling, the tighter the rope becomes, until it suffocates our joy. But here's the liberating part. When we loosen our grip, we begin to find freedom. When we accept that everything is changing, we no longer demand that life bend to our desires. Instead, we begin to flow with it. This doesn't mean we stop caring, or that we become cold and distant. In fact, it's the opposite. When we let go of attachment, we can actually love more fully, because our love is no longer chained by fear. We no longer love someone with the demand, stay with me forever. We love them with the understanding, I am grateful for this moment. We share. And that gratitude makes every experience, every relationship, every joy far richer. Here's something powerful to reflect on. How many times has sadness in your life been born not from what actually happened, but from the expectations you built around it? Think about it. The disappointment after a failed plan, the heartbreak after a goodbye, the anger after a missed chance. Each time, the pain grew stronger because we were holding on to how we thought things should be. When you begin to see this clearly, sadness transforms. You start to realize it's not life that is cruel. It is my clinging that creates the sorrow. And in that realization lies freedom. Because once you see the rope that binds you, you can begin to untie it. So, the next time sadness comes from loss, failure, or change, pause and ask yourself, am I hurting because of what happened, or because I cannot let go of how I wanted it to be? That question alone can begin to dissolve the weight of sadness. When we loosen our attachments, sadness no longer crushes us. Instead, it becomes lighter, easier to carry, because we see the truth. Nothing is truly ours to hold forever. And yet, that truth is not depressing. It is liberating. Because when we stop clinging, we finally learn how to live, how to love, and how to let life flow as it was always meant to. The lesson 3: sadness as a teacher. Most of us are taught to run from sadness. We distract ourselves, bury it under busyness, or numb it with entertainment. We treat sadness like an enemy to be defeated as quickly as possible. But Buddhism invites us to take a radically different approach. Instead of resisting sadness, we observe it. We sit with it. We listen to what it's trying to teach us. Because sadness, when we stop fighting it, becomes one of life's greatest teachers. Think of sadness like a mirror. It reflects back to us the things we value most. If losing a friend brings deep sorrow, it shows us how much we treasure connection. If failure at work cuts us deeply, it reveals how much we long for growth, recognition, and meaning. Sadness shines a light on where our hearts are invested. It points directly to what matters most to us, and it goes even further. It also reveals where we cling. Every tear we shed shows us something we were holding onto tightly. A dream, a person, an expectation, an identity. Sadness whispers, "Look here. This is what you could not let go of." And if we are willing to listen, that whisper can become a powerful lesson in self-awareness. Sadness also uncovers our fears. Beneath it, we often find the fear of being alone, the fear of being forgotten, the fear of losing control, or the fear of impermanence itself. By observing sadness mindfully, we begin to notice the fears that quietly govern our lives. And once we see them clearly, they no longer have the same power over us. Imagine sitting in meditation with sadness. You don't push it away. You don't label it as bad. You simply breathe and say to yourself, "This is sadness. It feels heavy in my chest. It feels like pressure behind my eyes. It feels like emptiness in my stomach." Suddenly, sadness stops being a monster in the shadows and becomes something you can look at directly. And in that awareness, the weight begins to shift. The pain transforms into insight. This is the gift of mindful observation. Sadness turns from a chain into a teacher. Instead of drowning in it, you rise above it and begin to learn. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone who loses their job. At first, sadness may feel like failure, rejection, even humiliation. But if they sit with it mindfully, they may notice what's beneath the pain. Perhaps it's not just about losing income. It's about losing identity, losing the sense of worth they tied to that role. Suddenly, the lesson becomes clear. I was clinging to my job to define my value. And with that awareness, a seed of wisdom is planted. My worth is not in my job, but in my being. That realization is priceless. Another example. When a relationship ends, sadness arrives like a tidal wave. But if we observe it, we might see that the deepest pain isn't only about the person leaving. It's about our fear of being unloved, our fear of being alone. That insight gives us a chance to turn inward, to heal the wounds we carry, to recognize that love and worth also live within us. Without sadness, that lesson may never surface. So, sadness, instead of being just suffering, becomes a doorway into greater wisdom, self-awareness, and even compassion. Because once you've sat with your own sadness, you understand the sadness of others more deeply. You no longer judge their pain. You recognize it, because you've been there too. Here is the Buddhist truth. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the messenger. Sadness is not a curse. It is a guide. If we fight it, we miss the lesson. If we sit with it, we grow. So the next time sadness enters your life, don't rush to escape it. Sit with it, breathe with it, and ask, what are you here to teach me? If you listen closely, sadness may answer. And in that answer, you may find wisdom that will stay with you long after the sadness itself has gone. Lesson 4. Practicing mindful acceptance. When sadness shows up, our first instinct is almost always resistance. We push it away, distract ourselves, or tell ourselves, I shouldn't feel this way. But here's the paradox. The more we fight sadness, the stronger it becomes. It's like trying to hold a beach ball under water. The harder we push it down, the more forcefully it pops back up. Buddhism offers us a different way. Instead of fighting sadness, we practice mindful acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean we enjoy sadness or that we want it to stay forever. It simply means we stop adding resistance to what's already here. Because when we stop labeling sadness as bad, it immediately begins to lose its power over us. One of the most powerful tools for this is meditation. Imagine you are sitting quietly and sadness rises in your chest. Instead of trying to push it away, you simply breathe. Inhale gently. Exhale slowly. As you breathe, you notice the sensations of sadness, perhaps a tightness in your throat, a heaviness in your stomach, or a dull ache in your heart. You don't judge it. You don't try to fix it. You simply say to yourself, this is sadness. This is how sadness feels in the body. What happens when we do this? Something incredible. Sadness, which felt so overwhelming, becomes manageable. It turns from an ocean that drowns us into a wave that we can observe. Instead of being trapped inside sadness, we become the witness of it. And when you witness sadness with awareness, you realize it is not permanent. It is not who you are. It is simply a passing state. Breathing practices can also help anchor us when sadness feels too heavy. Try this simple exercise. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose, counting to 4. Hold that breath gently for a moment. Then exhale slowly through your mouth, counting to 6. Repeat this cycle a few times and notice how your body softens. The breath reminds you that even in sadness, there is movement, there is change. With every exhale, you are letting go a little more. Another powerful practice is body awareness. When sadness arises, close your eyes for a moment and scan your body. Ask yourself, where do I feel this emotion? Maybe it's a heaviness in the chest, a lump in the throat, or a weight in the shoulders. As you notice it, place your hand gently on that area. Offer yourself kindness, as if you were comforting a dear friend. This simple act of awareness and compassion can dissolve much of sadness's intensity. Acceptance also means shifting how we talk to ourselves about sadness. Instead of saying, why am I sad? I shouldn't feel this way. Try saying, it's okay. This is sadness, and sadness is part of being human. Suddenly, sadness no longer feels like a flaw. It feels like an experience, one that will come and go like all others. Think of sadness as a guest at your table. You don't slam the door in its face, and you don't let it take over your home forever. You simply say, come in, sit for a while. And in time, like all guests, it leaves. By welcoming sadness instead of resisting it, you take away its sharpness. You see it for what it is, just another passing chapter in the story of your life. Here is the deeper truth. When we stop calling sadness bad, we discover that it can even be sacred. It slows us down. It softens our hearts. It reminds us of what matters. Acceptance doesn't just dissolve the pain. It opens the door to wisdom and compassion. So the next time sadness rises, don't run, don't fight. Instead, take a breath. Notice where it lives in your body. Place a hand over your heart and whisper gently to yourself, "It's okay to feel this. This is part of being alive." In that simple act of acceptance, sadness loses its weight, and you begin to find freedom in the very place you once felt trapped. Lesson 5. Compassion in sadness. Sadness is often seen as something to be avoided, as if it were a sign of weakness. In modern culture, we are taught to keep smiling, to stay strong, to push past pain. Yet when we do this, we miss one of the most profound gifts sadness has to offer. Sadness is not here to break us. It is here to soften us. It is here to remind us that beneath all our differences, there is something deeply human we all share: the experience of suffering. When sadness touches us, our hearts crack open. And in that crack, a new light shines through, the light of compassion. In Buddhist teachings, compassion is born from understanding suffering. The Buddha himself did not teach compassion as an abstract idea, but as something that naturally arises when we face pain with awareness. When we recognize our own struggles, we begin to see the struggles of others more clearly. And the more intimately we know sadness, the more deeply we can love. Think of your own life. Maybe you've lost someone you loved. Maybe you've faced failure, rejection, or heartbreak. In those moments, you felt a heaviness no words could fully capture. And yet, later on, when you saw someone else in pain, didn't your heart move toward them? Didn't you feel a quiet connection, even if you didn't say anything? That is compassion born from sadness. There is a story in Buddhist tradition of Kisagotami, a mother who lost her only child. Overcome with grief, she carried her child's body to the Buddha, begging him to bring the boy back to life. The Buddha, instead of offering magic, gave her a simple task: "Bring me a mustard seed from a household that has never known loss." She went from house to house, and everywhere she heard the same story. We too have lost someone. We too know grief. By the end of her journey, she realized the truth, that suffering is universal. Her sadness transformed into compassion, and her heart expanded beyond her own pain to embrace the pain of all beings. This story reveals a powerful truth. Sadness, when faced with awareness, breaks the illusion of isolation. It shows us that our suffering is not unique. It connects us to the greater human story. Now think about this in your own life. Perhaps you've gone through a difficult season, depression, loneliness, or the end of a relationship. At the time, it may have felt like a personal storm, but years later, when someone you know faces similar struggles, you become a shelter for them. You don't just offer empty words like, "Stay strong," or "It will be okay." Instead, you offer presence, understanding, and kindness. Why? Because you've been there. Sadness carved that compassion into your soul. This is why some of the kindest people we meet are those who have suffered the most. Their pain has shaped them, softened them, and deepened their ability to love. Sadness has watered the seed of compassion in their hearts. But here's the key. Compassion does not grow from resisting sadness. It grows from accepting it, feeling it, and learning from it. When we numb our sadness, we also numb our compassion. When we deny our pain, we also deny ourselves the chance to connect more deeply with others. Imagine for a moment if every person in the world allowed their sadness to become compassion. Instead of hiding their struggles behind a mask, they use those struggles to empathize, to serve, and to lift others. How different would our world be? Wars and cruelty would lose their fuel because we would see ourselves in one another. Loneliness would fade because instead of turning away from each other's pain, we would lean into it with open hearts. Sadness, then, is not a weakness. It is a hidden teacher. It is the gentle hand that guides us toward compassion. The next time you feel sadness rising within you, don't ask, "How can I escape this?" Instead, ask, "What is this teaching me about love? How can this pain help me understand the suffering of others?" This shift transforms sadness from a burden into a blessing. Think of sadness as rain. It may fall heavily, and sometimes it feels endless. But that rain nourishes the earth. It feeds the roots of trees and brings life to flowers. In the same way, your sadness nourishes the roots of your compassion. Without rain, there is no growth. Without sadness, there is no depth to love. So, allow sadness to flow through you, not as an enemy, but as a companion. Let it soften the hard edges of your heart. Let it remind you that you are part of a vast human family, each of us walking through joy and sorrow together. And when you see someone else burdened by sadness, don't turn away. Sit with them. Listen to them. Even if you don't have the perfect words, your presence will speak louder than advice ever could. Compassion is not about fixing others. It is about walking beside them, hand in hand, heart to heart. In this way, sadness becomes sacred. It becomes a bridge that connects us not only to one another, but to the very essence of the Buddhist path. A path rooted in compassion, kindness, and interconnectedness. So remember this: sadness is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a deeper one. A story where pain becomes love, where loss becomes connection, and where compassion blooms like a lotus rising from muddy waters. Lesson 6. The freedom beyond sadness. Sadness often feels like a storm that overtakes our lives. It comes suddenly, it clouds our vision, and it can make us believe the sun will never shine again. Many of us live in fear of sadness, trying to outrun it, bury it, or numb it with distractions. But Buddhism teaches something radically different. True freedom is not found in escaping sadness, but in transforming our relationship with it. The Buddha's teaching on impermanence, anicca, reminds us that everything, including sadness, is in constant motion. Just as no wave stays forever in the ocean, no emotion stays forever in the heart. Sadness arises, lingers, and eventually dissolves. The trouble begins when we mistake sadness for permanence. When we tell ourselves, "This is who I am. This sadness defines me." But here is the truth. You may feel sadness, but you are not sadness. It passes through you like clouds drifting across the sky. But the vast sky itself remains untouched. You are that sky, open, spacious, unchanging, while sadness is only a temporary weather pattern. Think of how many times in your life you've been convinced that the sadness you felt would last forever. Perhaps it was the heartbreak of a lost relationship, the grief of losing someone dear, or the despair of failure. In those moments, it felt like the end of everything. And yet, here you are. The sadness faded, even if slowly. You laughed again. You loved again. You found meaning again. This is the truth of impermanence at work. When we truly see sadness as impermanent, it begins to lose its grip. It no longer frightens us. We can let it flow through us without clinging or resistance. This is freedom, not the absence of sadness, but the wisdom to walk through sadness without being swallowed by it. In Buddhism, suffering is said to arise from attachment, our tendency to cling to what we like and push away what we dislike. Sadness often arises when something we are attached to is lost, whether it is a person, a dream, or even an image of ourselves. But here's the paradox. The more we cling, the heavier sadness feels. When we loosen our grip, sadness becomes lighter, less suffocating. Imagine holding a handful of sand. If you clutch it tightly, it spills through your fingers and leaves your hand raw. But if you hold it gently, the sand simply rests there without struggle. Sadness is like that sand. When you grip it with resistance, it hurts. When you hold it lightly, it teaches. This is why freedom doesn't mean eliminating sadness. In fact, a life without sadness would be a life without depth. Freedom means learning to let sadness be what it is, a passing guest, without identifying with it. One of the most powerful teachings from the Buddha says, "Pain is certain. Suffering is optional." Pain will come in the form of sadness, grief, and loss. But suffering arises when we fuse our identity with that pain. When we say, "This sadness is me." Freedom lies in breaking that identification. Think of a person walking through rain. One person fights the rain, curses it, and ends up drenched and miserable. Another person simply accepts the rain, knowing it will pass, and keeps walking calmly with awareness. Both are in the same rain, but their experience is entirely different. This is the difference between living in bondage to sadness and living in freedom beyond it. Now, how do we practice this freedom in daily life? It begins with mindfulness. When sadness arises, instead of reacting with fear or self-criticism, pause and observe it. Name it gently. This is sadness. Notice how it feels in the body, perhaps a heaviness in the chest, a lump in the throat, or a quiet ache in the heart. Simply notice, without judgment. By doing this, you create space between yourself and the sadness. You see it as a visitor, not as your essence. The more we practice this, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, even in the midst of sadness, a deeper peace remains untouched within us. We realize that while waves rise and fall, the ocean itself is calm and boundless beneath them. That ocean is your true self, vast awareness that is never destroyed by passing emotions. This is the essence of Buddhist freedom, to live fully without needing to escape life's sorrows, and yet not be enslaved by them. Sadness may visit, but it cannot imprison you. And here lies the real beauty. When you discover this freedom, sadness itself becomes less frightening. You no longer dread it. You see it as part of the human experience, as natural as night following day. And with this wisdom, you live with greater courage, compassion, and peace. So the next time sadness knocks at your door, do not fear it. Do not run. Open the door, invite it in, and watch it with calm awareness. Remember, you may still feel sadness, but you will not become sadness. You are the sky, not the clouds. You are the ocean, not the waves. And in that realization, you will find a freedom no sadness can ever take away. Closing reflection, a new way to see sadness. We began this journey with a simple promise that by the end of this video, you may never feel sadness the same way again. And now, as we arrive at this closing reflection, I invite you to pause and notice how your heart feels in this moment. Perhaps lighter, perhaps softer, perhaps more open to seeing sadness not as an enemy, but as a companion, a teacher, even a doorway to awakening. Sadness will visit you again. That much is certain. No teaching, no meditation, no philosophy will ever erase sadness completely, because it is part of being human. But here is what has changed: the way you see it. Instead of fearing it, you can welcome it. Instead of fighting it, you can learn from it. Instead of drowning in it, you can let it pass through you like a guest who comes, stays for a while, and eventually leaves. You may still feel sadness, but you will no longer become sadness. Think of this. Every time sadness arises, it offers you a choice. You can see it as a curse, something unfair, something that robs you of joy. Or you can see it as a doorway to wisdom, to compassion, to deeper understanding of yourself and others. Which doorway will you choose? Remember the metaphors we've explored together. Sadness is like the passing clouds, while you are the vast sky. Sadness is like the rain, nourishing the roots of compassion. Sadness is like the guest who knocks at your door, teaching you patience, awareness, and tenderness. None of these things are curses. They are reminders of life's impermanence and life's beauty. Imagine what would happen if, from this day forward, you no longer ran from sadness. If, instead of avoiding it, you leaned in with curiosity. If, instead of judging yourself for feeling it, you embraced it as part of the great fabric of existence. Your life would no longer be ruled by fear of sorrow. You would discover a deeper freedom, a freedom to walk through joy and sorrow with the same steady heart. This is the essence of Buddhist wisdom. Not to eliminate the storms of life, but to discover the calm sky that remains untouched by them. That calmness is within you right now. So the next time sadness comes, pause. Take a breath. Place your hand gently on your heart. Say to yourself, "This is sadness. It is here now, but it will not stay forever. It is not who I am." And then watch it with gentle awareness, the way you might watch a leaf drifting on a river. Let it flow, let it teach, let it go. When you live in this way, sadness transforms from a heavy burden into a sacred guide. It reminds you of love, of compassion, of the shared humanity that connects us all. It is no longer something that chains you, but something that frees you. And so, I leave you with this simple truth. Sadness is not a curse. Sadness is not the end of your story. Sadness is a doorway to awakening, to compassion, to freedom. And once you step through that doorway, you will never see sadness the same way again. If this message has touched your heart, I invite you to continue this journey with me. On this channel, we explore Buddhist wisdom, timeless teachings, and practical reflections to help you live with more peace and clarity. If you found value here, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe so you never miss these reminders of calm and strength. And I'd love to hear from you. In the comments, share how you've experienced sadness in your own life and what lessons it has taught you. Your story might become the light that helps someone else through their darkness. Together, we can create a community of compassion, wisdom, and growth. So remember, you are not your sadness. You are the vast sky behind it. And here, you are never alone.